Chapter 6. The air whipped past, the dark all-consuming. Andy's limited vision caught flashes of blood-red something growing from the cavern walls, glistening in the limited light. He reached out to one of them to stop himself, breaking his fall before he could approach deadly velocity. Of course, the moment he gripped the mushroom's soft edges, it tore, leaving Andy tangling by a thread of mycelium for a stray second before he dropped again. The boy hit his rear end on a rock on the way down and yelped, the impact sending him spinning. Lingering in the air, he could just barely catch on to Elena's scent. Andy punched off the wall to propel himself toward it. The mushrooms thankfully began to help soften each impact with the walls, their numbers growing larger the deeper he descended. Andy bounced from shroom to shroom all the way down, though the bottom came a lot later than he had first anticipated. Seconds stretched to minutes as he plummeted endlessly downward. The walls began to grow further and further apart, Andy's safety net being dragged away along with them. A creeping dread began to take hold. How far did this chasm go? Would he ever reach the bottom? Panic set in. Andy screamed, helplessly flailing his arms. The walls were gone. The darkness pressed in on all sides. He tried to grab onto something, anything to slow his descent, but there was nothing to grasp, only an endless void. Just as he had resigned himself to a messy fate, a massive shape loomed out from the darkness below. His eyes widened as he made out the colossal cap of a mighty mushroom, easily the size of a stadium. Andy slammed into the enormous fungus with bone-jarring force. The impact knocked the wind out of him, but at the same time, the mushroom's rubbery flesh absorbed most of the blow. He bounced high into the air, tumbling head over heels. Up and down, Andy bounced, each rebound sending him a little less high than before. His stomach lurched with each rise and fall as he struggled to regain his bearings. After what felt like an eternity as a paddleball, the boy's momentum petered out. He came to rest face down on the spongy surface, panting. Andy lay there for a moment, heart pounding, lungs heaving as he tried to catch his breath. The spongy surface slowly expanded and contracted beneath him. A faint glow was visible just up ahead, as some bioluminescent blue fungus lined the grounds around the enormous amanita. Groaning, the boy pushed himself up onto his hands and knees. His white costume was soaked in streaks of blue juice. As his senses returned, Andy could hear the distant honking of clunes and the rhythmic dripping of water. The air down here was thick, damp, and full of decay. A familiar scent caught above the rest. Elena! Andy's nostrils flares. What a wave of relief. He inhaled deeply, picking up on a few more familiar traces. Vic's cologne, Cece's slightly bitter scent, Tanya's earthly musk. There was something else too, an acrid scent that made his nose wrinkle. Burnt hair mixed with a sickly sweet. Andy crawled to the edge of the giant mushroom cap, peering down at the cavern floor below. In the dim light, he could make out a trail of sizzling clune corpses, tiny pools of liquefied caramel oozing from their ruptured bodies. Andy's eyes followed the trail, noting signs of a struggle. Deep claw marks gouged in the earth. Crushed clunes spattered against the rocks, tufts of Cece's costume fluff clinging to a few jagged outcroppings. Hundreds of thousands of tiny paw prints were embedded into the mud as well. The clunes. Andy growled. The tracks led further in. One more bit caught Andy's eye. Elena's crown, laying damp on the floor, surrounded by sizzling fur. His heart sank when it passed. Andy leapt down, landing with a soft thud on the earth below. Carefully, he picked up the crown, turning it over in his hands. The delicate paper was crumpled and torn in places, stained in clune juice and smudged makeup. Andy's chest tightened as he recalled applying said makeup just hours before. She was so excited to go to this festival. He was about to tuck the crown into his pocket when a blood-curdling scream echoed through the cavern, causing him to drop it. "Cece!" Andy cried. Without a moment's hesitation, the boy took off running in the direction of the scream. His shoes slapped against the damp stone, following the trail of clunes. The scent grew stronger and stronger as he ran deeper into the labyrinthine system of caverns. A chorus of screams accompanied, echoing through the vast tunnel. It was disorienting, confusing. Andy gripped his sensitive ears tight and picked up his pace. The cries came from all directions at once, bouncing off the curved walls, amplifying into a deafening screech. The boy's eyes darted from corner to corner, searching for any sign of Cece, but she was nowhere to be seen. His heart sank as he realized she must have been carried off deeper into the caverns. He was intent on following the trail, and on getting away from these screams. The passage was hardly illuminated beyond the soft glow of the boy's eyes. Andy had to rely on his other senses to get him through. A pit began to grow in Andy's stomach. Just how deep were these caverns? Realistically, how was he going to get out of here? He didn't really come in here with much of a game plan at all, now that he thought about it. Was he a dullard? A simpleton? There was no use beating himself up about it now. His friends, they had to be up ahead. They would know what to do. Or maybe they'd ridicule him for coming down here to begin with. It was hard to tell. Either way, he didn't want to be alone for much longer. Andy picked up his pace and sped down the tunnel, keeping his arms out in front of himself to avoid running into any walls. The ground beneath Andy's feet became increasingly spongy with each step. Tendrils of pale mycelium crept along the tunnel's floors and walls, weaving into an ever-thickening carpet. Eventually, the passage opened up into a smaller chamber. Andy found himself surrounded by a grotesque fungal growth. Enormous mushrooms of various hues sprouted from every surface, caps glistening with moisture. Shelf fungi jutted out from the walls in tiered formations, luminescent spores floating lazily through the air around them. The entire chamber pulsed with lichen, quivering, undulating as if it reacting to their presence. As Andy's eyes adjusted, he noticed something large and reflective embedded in the far wall. An eye staring back at him. Cece's. The girl began to gasp.
Is someone there?
Cece asked, her voice raspy and full of phlegm.
Can you please help?
Cece, it's me, Andy said, approaching. He tugged at the fibrous growths that held Cece in place, his claws sinking into the fungal flesh with ease. I'm gonna get you out of here, okay? Just hang tight.
Oh, man. Andy, they got you too?
I'm alright. Just came down here to get you guys.
Gee, that's nice of you.
Cece coughed a few times. Do you know where the others got took? Cece shook her head as much as she could while restrained by the growths.
Vic was able to fight off the Clunes for the most part. We got away from them a little bit, but then we got ambushed.
Cece grimaced.
Some jerk with a club for an arm.
A club for an arm?
Yeah, a micronid, I think.
Andy's brows furrowed. Micronids were a strange case, from his experience. Amicable, community-driven, they were people for sure, but very primitive ones. They were easily angered, quite violent and feral when they felt their peace was threatened. And that's why it was all the stranger to find Cece in one piece. The micronids Andy was familiar with would have ripped her to shreds by now. The idea that one would go out of her way to merely incapacitate his friends and hang them up like wall ornaments, it didn't sit right. As the last entrapping tendrils fell away, Cece stumbled it forward into Andy's arms, coughing and sputtering. Easy there, Andy said, patting her gently on the back. Can you walk?
Yeah, I think so. Just give me a sec,
Cece said. Andy helped her regain her balance, watching her as she took a few careful test steps. Her jester costume was tattered, a bell hanging limply from what remained of her hat. Despite her condition, her eyes still held that usual optimistic spark. A quick breath out, and Cece was standing back up straight again.
Let's go find everyone,
Cece said. They turned toward the tunnel Andy had emerged from, ready to retrace his steps. As the kids approached the entrance, however, the both of them froze up. There, floating in the miasma, a cluster of moist, beady eyes stared back at them. From the dark emerged the micronid, draped in a dirty, ragged cloak. Its body was an amalgamation of fungal growths and recycled bones. Thick, ropey tendrils of lichen writhed like large veins spread across his body, the stretched tissue struggling to hold the creature together. Its head was a bloated mound, a large cap with dozens of bulging eyes, each studying the children with intent. Below its cap was a grotesque maw, rows of banana-shaped teeth lining the inside. Drool slowly dripped from its gnashing jaws. The moment the creature locked eyes with the boy, he foamed at the mouth. From beneath his cloak, he revealed his large, swollen, club-like limb. The three began to walk in a tense circle. Without taking his eyes off the creature, Andy reached back and gently pushed Cece behind him.
How do you want to do this?
Andy whispered.
He probably knows where the others are,
Cece said, her eye fixating on the creature's horde of mini mushrooms.
Maybe we could do a little convincing on our end. Guess it's worth a shot. Can you distract him?
Nodding, Cece quickly scooped up a handful of the mushrooms off the ground. The micronid turned toward Cece and hissed with agitation. He began to approach.
Hey, big guy,
she called, taking a few steps backward.
You want to see a magic trick?
The micronid paused its advance. Cece took a deep breath, hiding the mushrooms behind her back. Now was her time to shine.
Okay, watch closely.
She held up her 4 hands, exposing her palms to the creature. Empty. The creature's many eyes blinked out of sync with one another, all fixated on different movements. With a small flourish, Cece's hands went back behind herself, and one by one she picked out a juicy fungus in each. The micronid squinted his eyes and took another step toward Cece, which was exactly when she began to juggle. Her forearms worked in perfect coordination, tossing the fungi around in intricate patterns. The micronid was not impressed. He continued walking forward.
What, you didn't like it?
Cece asked. Thud, thud, thud. That was a step too close for the girl. She tossed her handful of fungus into the creature's face and began to bolt in the opposite direction on all 6 limbs. Along the way, she was sure to pluck each and every mushroom that graced her path. The micronid roared with indignation and made chase. As that happened, Andy was focused on achieving his usual metamorphosis. His eyes clenched tight, an inner fire ignited in his chest. A familiar, primal feeling threatened to bubble over. His great and terrible alter ego was knocking at the door, and without many options, the boy was going to have to let him in. He doubled over, his tendons twitching, his muscles swelling beneath his skin. His bones snapped, retracting and reforming as his frame expanded. Coarse hair sprouted across his arms, his face, his whole body was engulfed in itchy fur. As the face extended forward, his teeth, one by one, jutted from his gums, sharpening into fierce points. His eyes blazed with intense light, a black mask of fur forming around them. From the veil of the boy's pained roars, there emerged a hearty and satisfied laughter. Rex was free. Rex was going to pound this jerk into dust. Across the spongy chamber, Cece, cornered, scrambled up the slimy fungal wall. Her limbs gripped the wall's uneven surface. The creature swiped at her with his club-like arm, the appendage whistling through the air, just inches away from hitting her. Realizing his quarry was just out of reach, the micronid let out a frustrated roar. He turned, ready to go after his other prey, but instead of the unassuming chubby kid that had once occupied the space, there was that, a giant brick wall of fur and meat. The werewolf towered, even over the micronid, a wide grin plastered on his canine face. "Hey, bub," Rex said as he cracked his knuckles. The werewolf threw a big right hook. The micronid clocked hard by the blow. It retaliated with a swing of its massive club arm overhead. Rex caught the blow on his forearm, the impact sending shockwaves through his body. He grunted in pain but held his ground, using his superior strength to push back. The 2 behemoths shuffled toward the wall. Undeterred, Rex pushed forward, his eyes locked onto his prey. With a swift motion, he reached out, his large hands encircling the micronid's thick neck. The creature squirmed and writhed, but there was no breaking free of the werewolf's iron grasp. The battle cries of the micronid descended into gasps. It clawed desperately at Rex's arm with its 4-fingered hand. Rex boomed with laughter, his voice echoing throughout the chamber. With a mighty heave, he lifted the micronid off its feet and chucked it like a rag doll. The creature hurled through the air before crashing through a thick wall of mycelium. A cloud of spores erupted upon impact. "Come on! Is that all you got?" Rex said. He approached the fallen micronid, his teeth bared. Just as victory seemed certain, the micronid lunged forward, extending its clawed hand toward Rex. Too swift of a movement, Rex couldn't dodge it. The creature slashed his chest, its powerful claws cutting deep. Blood trickled down his ginger fur. Rex staggered back as his massive hand clamped the wound. Strange blisters had rapidly formed. They pulsed and throbbed under his palm, as if they had a life of their own. Before he could really react, the blisters burst open, one after another, soft caps rapidly growing across his chest. He grunted in discomfort, frantically trying to rip the things out. Each mushroom he pulled revealed 2 more growing in its place. A cold dread crept down the werewolf's spine. He was quickly being overrun with fungus. As he was distracted, the micronid had recovered enough to lunge at Rex again. With a crazed rasp, it swung its club-like arm at Rex, sending the werewolf flying across the chamber. Luckily, Rex landed on top of a cushy bed of caps. Unluckily, the veiny mycelium began to stretch over him, believing him to be one of their own. Rex struggled and writhed as he was pulled further in. The micronid approached, cackling hoarsely as he readied to swing his arm once more. Like a cruel game of whack-a-mole, he brought his club hand down onto the prone Rex, driving him deeper and deeper into the ground. Before he could beat the werewolf into any more of a pulp, however, something jingled up above. Cece, the muddy jester, landed directly on the micronid's back. With all 4 arms, she pummeled him, her little fists landing with satisfying thumps against its bulging eyes. The micronid roared and bucked, trying to throw his unexpected visitor off his shoulders, but Cece held fast. Catching hold of one of his eyes, Cece twisted hard. The micronid yowled as a gush of blue liquid spurted from the socket. Enraged, it swung around violently, finally managing to toss Cece away. She flew through the air before crashing into the earth. The micronid hissed and charged her. Cece scrambled to her feet, prepared to meet it head on, when suddenly the creature had stopped, grabbed from behind. Rex, having freed himself from the fungal trap, held the creature in place. Grabbing the creature by the sides, claws digging in deep, Rex leveraged his strength against the micronid's bulk, lifting him clean off his feet. The werewolf pivoted and threw himself backward. The impact shook the chamber as Rex completed his brutal German suplex, slamming the micronid onto the cavern floor. A cloud of dust erupted around them as their bodies came to a halt. Rex rose slowly. His eyes scanned the fallen foe, checking him for any movement, making sure he was down for the count. Just to be sure, Rex took a step forward, placing one massive paw on the micronid's chest. The creature groaned beneath him, his many eyes wincing at once. Rex grumbled to himself, scratching at the fungus that continued to grow from his chest. It seemed to be slowing down at this point. That, and the creature's meek whimpers, indicated a form of surrender. Cece got to her feet, dusting herself off, watching as Rex subdued the fungal adversary. Besides the muck and some bruising on her exoskeleton, she seemed unharmed.
Hey, big guy, you alright?
Cece said. Rex turned toward her, giving a low grunt of affirmation. His gaze slightly softened as he took in her battered state. You? Rex asked.
Never better,
Cece said with some jazz hands. Rex snorted and turned his attention back to the whimpering micronid pinned beneath him. He leaned in close, snout wrinkling as he took in the creature's scent. The micronid's eyes darted around, terrified. All right, bub, start talking. Where are you keeping everyone else? Rex asked. The micronid hissed. Rex drove his heel further into the creature's ribs. We can do this one bone at a time, bub. Tell me what I want to know. The micronid's eyes narrowed. Rex had put him into a rather difficult position. Reluctant, the creature croaked a single word. Below.